Hello, and welcome to another edition of Business Success Fertilizer Applications. This is a feature of referral exchange networking that we have every week, and we hope that it will enable you to better grow your business. Now, as you can tell by the attire that I'm wearing, it's currently February here in Rhode Island, and it's pretty cold. Teens, actually. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to do this warm and comfortable. So, today we're going to be talking about motivation. And essentially, I've been reading a lot about motivation, and there was an interesting article by J.D. Meyer. Uh, he wrote it for Time, and it was called 15 Ways to Motivate Yourself and Others. Now, for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to cover all 15. In fact, I'm just going to talk about a few of them that he mentioned and then get on to the rest of the topic. He suggested to motivate yourself, you want to connect to your values. You want to figure out why you're doing what you're doing. You want to change that why if it isn't correct. And you want to make sure that you're doing it how you should be doing it. Now, so far, none of these ways to motivate you are really making me feel warm and fuzzy. He also talks about remember how you feel when you're thinking about your business. Um, he tells you to think of a meaningful metaphor. But when he gets to number 8 of the 15, that one is take action. Okay, so at this point, let's focus on take action and we'll leave JD Meyer and we'll go to a book by Jeff Hayden entitled The Motivational Myth. And take action is basically what he's talking about. The motivational myth, how high achievers really set themselves up to win. Now, he writes about not being able to find the motivation to start something big. He was waiting for that spark that he thought was needed to get him going. And without getting into a lot of detail, he discovered that for him, as well as for most people, motivation is not a lightning bolt. And even if it were, he describes it as something similar to a sugar rush. It feels great, but it's impossible to maintain the high. And when you come down, you feel even worse. You feel like a loser, like a failure, which in turn simply reinforces your feelings that you can't do it. And that is demotivational. Mr. Hayden says that the only recipe for motivation is success. Now, when I read that, I thought, wait, isn't that the chicken and egg thing? If you're not motivated, how do you achieve the success? Well, his answer is pretty simple. He says, you start. That's right. You start and you create one little success, which then motivates you to do something else along that path that earns you another success and another hit of motivation. The author explains that success is a process that is repeatable and predictable. For instance, learning a language can for some people seem like an impossible task. It's like there's a different word for everything. Not to mention that some languages put the verb or the noun in the wrong place, and they sometimes have masculine or feminine versions for the same word, or they don't. So after stumbling through a few online or in-person classes, you throw in the towel. It's impossible until it isn't. I had a friend in Italy years ago. Her name was Helen Lucky. Helen was the top administrator at the laboratory I used to visit. One of her duties was to arrange my travel itinerary, which would often change based on what I found at the lab. I watched her one time while she called Germany on my behalf, spoke in perfect German, then hung up, called the office in Rome using impeccable Italian. Then she hung up, called Spain, did the same thing in Spanish, then called London to finalize my trip, and flawlessly switched to English, but with an English accent. And then she added a side trip to Edinburgh, speaking, you guessed it, with a perfect Scottish brogue. When she was done, I asked her, how do you do that? You make it seem so easy. She told me that there really isn't an easy way to do it. It was hard, but she explained that her goal had been to be an opera singer. So she moved to Italy and needed to learn the language. So she got started. It was hard, but once she succeeded, she realized that the same methods could be applied to learning other languages. She said there were no shortcuts. Shortcuts only work if you're trying to learn a few sentences. The only way to learn a language was to start at the beginning, learn the specifics, and keep at it. She was motivated by her success. Now, Helen never did become an opera singer, but I thought of her when I was reading Jeff Hayden's book. Helen's motivation to learn multiple languages sprang from her initial success of learning Italian. As Mr. Hayden says, real motivation comes after you start. Self-help books are great. Support groups are great. Telling people what you plan to do is great. But none of that matters if you don't get started. As Mark Twain wrote, if you have to eat a frog, don't look at it too long. So if you want to be motivated in your business, get started. That little first hit of success will lead to more motivation. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it. And if you have any questions, you can go to the Referral Exchange website, RX or referralexchangenetworking.com, and contact us. So thanks again. Rich Austin, Business Success Fertilizer Application for the week. See you next week.